and we are now recording it. So.
And then to get the clicker, because I'm always clicker challenged.
That's the, and yeah, let me pull this up for you. It may be, yes. And are you going to stand at the podium? Okay. This is so they can hear you online. I've got another one I can bring you. Is that may have gotten left on?
Always clicker challenge.
No, and I think it may have gotten left on last night, so.
No.
It's just nuts.
You'll turn the camera off?
Yeah, can we? Because I have all these like case scenarios about like interactive to learn from each other, so we can go through a few of them. Last time I did this, we had the room was full, so it was like really good because every row we could do it.
The common people.
Yeah, and that will help us. How are you? Are y'all over the flu?
Yes, I think. He still has a really bad cough. Still not working.
I've got one upstairs, I
Well,
think.
can I use the keyboard or that one?
You can just use the
Let
arrow.
me see if it's because
Just use the arrow?
Is that connected through that?
If they're
Oh, it works
It
with
is.
the keyboard.
I didn't know that.
So,
Well, but no, this is working.
oh.
This had to be on. I didn't realize that the two were connected. Or no, that was you doing it.
No, it's
Sorry.
me.
It is you.
I'm just doing the,
You want to just do that for now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's.
It's there. It's on the
Why
bottom.
is it?
Okay.
It's this
So
one
if it's
here.
new, there's no transition. It's just,
I don't know.
let's start all over.
I don't see a light.
right here.
That would work.
There it is.
There. This is with Aaron, right?
Yes, you go to the right and back. And I'll be back down.
Well, maybe they'll redo that.
Shut the outlet that way.
And maybe they're redoing that structure.
And Justin, and that's really what he's done now. He's on this fever.
So,
It's been about
that land was gone.
but
Or you
he's
just,
not.
you
Yeah,
still
no, I
send
don't
them.
know. 101, 102. Now it's not congested. The sounds like they're just coughing like crazy.
That's what, I'm going back to the conversation, just like, you need to move to the next thing for you. It's like, please, please. That's on me after.
And, well, so, I mean, overdosing, because it's a, yeah. Yeah, and that's for pediatric, or is that for, you're talking about just for adults? Yes. But you have the both, don't you? You should be getting both kids and adults, but. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I have not seen anything like it.
Deviation still good. Yeah, I need to start, I need to get those sent out in the next couple of days. I got a couple of things to do out to the Yeah, and Jennifer Rogers is back, so her and I spoke for a long time.
Yes, it's kind of
Like, top security is. Anyway, I just mentioned to them, so we talked about this whole camp, very good discussion. It's really, look into that, and let us know what you just, so she said she was gonna do a group and stuff, so. You may hear something, he's gonna. She.
I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Meredith Fitzgerald, and I'm the manager for the Clinical Research Support Program here at UAB with the CCTS and CTO. And so today we're going to be talking about deviation reporting. And I have to just go ahead and apologize because I've had this head congestion, so sorry. So today's objectives are we're going to define what a protocol deviation is and what needs to happen. Identify what needs to be reported when a protocol deviation occurs, and identify ways to re-educate your staff to prevent protocol deviations from reoccurring. This is probably the most important objective today, is that the education and documentation of the what you did to prevent it from happening again. And describe actions that may result from reporting protocol deviations. So the goal is to increase awareness of the importance of reporting deviations and how to educate staff so they're not repeated. And to understand how to report your protocol deviations. So what is a deviation? A protocol deviation is any noncompliance with the clinical trial protocol, good clinical practice or GCP, protocol including your manual procedures, sometimes it's called manual of operation, any kind of supporting study documents. So the non-compliance can either be part of the subject, the investigator, or the study site staff, and may result in significant added risk to the study subject. As a result of deviations, corrective actions are to be developed by the site and be implemented. So a lot of times deviations occur and we don't have control of that. Like, let's say a subject doesn't make it to his visit and he's, you have a 2-week window and he's 3 days past the 2-week window. So a lot of times that's out of our control, but it's still a deviation from the protocol. So what do the regs say? And when we were preparing for this talk, there's not a lot that the regs really address. I did find in the compliance program guidance manual that they define a deviation or violation as an unplanned excursion from the protocol that is not implemented or intended as a systematic change. It also includes noncompliance. And it's used to determine whether there needs to be changes to the protocol. So in device trials, if you look in the regs there, they're a little more detailed. That's the next slide. And they really are more concerned where if the deviation affects the device, it affects the safety and the welfare of the subject. So it really delves into more safety issues. There's also, there's some guidelines for deviations. These are the good clinical practices. So in your spare time, I provided them so you can go back and read those. So what are the different types of deviations? We have deviations that occur because the investigator, research staff, or other party involved in the conduct of research intentionally decides to deviate from the approved protocol. I've had an investigator look at me one time and say, can't we just ask for forgiveness later, or can't we just enroll this patient even though they truly don't meet the inclusion criteria? And the answer is no. You're really not supposed to deviate from your protocol. If you see a need to amend your protocol, then amend it, get it approved, and then you can enroll that subject. There can be deviations from the protocol that are identified before but cannot be prevented. An example of this would be a subject is going out of the country and they need to come in to get study investigational drug, and you have to do the visit a little bit early. You would notify your sponsor. Would be a deviation from the protocol, but things like that happen. And deviations from the protocol that are discovered after they occur. And I've had this happen to me where I've read a protocol 20 million times and I've interpreted it this way, and I do the first visit and we deviate just a little bit. We interpret the protocol a little bit differently. So we have to monitor a visit within the first 2 weeks of enrolling the patient. And she says, well, really, the protocol means this. So we have to report a protocol deviation, we have to update our source documents, and we have to re-educate our staff on how we're going to conduct the protocol visits. And really poorly written protocols that are really gray, that aren't specific, you'll see this a lot with. So the better written, the more detailed and specific a protocol can be, or a manual of operations, the better off you are in the decrease of number of deviations that can occur. So there's two different basic types. There's planned, which we kind of addressed earlier, and then it can become a protocol amendment, or unplanned, and it's done by accident or for the safety, becomes a protocol deviation report. So who is responsible for protocol deviations? Everybody on the research team. Anybody involved in conducting the research is responsible, from regulatory to the research associate, just everybody. So it's the responsibility of the site, the PI, the study staff to use continuous diligence to identify and report deviations within 5 working days or with a timeline identified by the sponsor. Of the identification of the protocol deviation or within 5 working days of the scheduled protocol required activity or specified by your sponsor. So what I did is, since we have people that would join us remotely, they may not use the UAV, IRB, or WRB. But what I did is I went last night to the guidebooks on both websites, and I pulled what the reporting procedures are for both. So I'll pass these around, have one that has UAB, RB, and one that's WRB, and then the forms that go with those when you need to report your deviation. So I'll pass those around. So what I suggest is if you've identified a protocol deviation is to go to your IRB's website and double check, because a lot of times things are updated and forms are updated. And so it's just best to know how to get through the guidebook and find the forms you need. So if a protocol deviation occurs, one must report the deviation to the IRB per their guidelines, report the deviation to the sponsor, and complete the protocol deviation per the sponsor's guidelines. So a lot of times the sponsors have a protocol deviation form that they expect you to complete. If they don't, then you need to come up with a form yourself and make sure, we'll go through and there's a handout with some key elements that need to be included in your protocol deviation report. You need to capture the event on the subject's source document and regulatory binder. I love deviation logs. I mean, I don't love them, but I love logs, the use of logs. So it helps me, especially with UAB, IRB reporting, just to keep up a general on-time log. And so when my annual renewal is due, I have it all documented and I'm not pulling all my records and trying to find it. Implement a corrective action QC process to prevent the deviation from occurring. And this is probably the most important thing you can do. If you're ever audited, the auditors don't expect you to be perfect. In fact, if you are perfect, that's kind of a red flag to them. So they want to see what you've done and how you've re-educated your staff. And the re-education documentation is really, really important. So let's say you have an amendment to a protocol and you haven't updated or trained your staff, and the amendment changes when a lab is due. And you draw it and it's it's not needed for that visit, it's needed at the next visit. So that's a deviation. So you would need to come up with a plan to educate your research staff on A, the amendment, and B, when the actual lab is due, and update your source. So you need to document this, log it in, date it, and make sure everybody's been informed. So if you go to your handout, there's some elements that may need to be included in protocol reporting protocol deviation. So you need to include the report date and deviation date, the site name and investigator name, protocol number and protocol name, subject identification number, the deviation type, did the deviation result in an adverse event or a serious adverse event? Did the deviation result in a subject termination to study follow-up? And a brief description of what happened. Reason for the protocol deviation and category, at what visit did it occur, and did the deviation affect or could it potentially affect the product stability? Describe the steps to avoid the reoccurrence of the deviation, and this is really what everybody's going to focus on. Your RB is going to focus on it, your sponsor is going to focus on it. Sometimes sponsors will want to have a phone call or a monitoring visit and address why it occurred and how we can prevent it from happening. And does the deviation meet the IRB reporting requirements? If yes, consider the document reported to the IRB, which we're passing around. And just be familiar with whatever IRB you use and what the forms are needed and what their requirements are. And the PI signature is required on the source document on the protocol deviation form when applicable. And you want your PI to be informed. If a monitor comes in and says, we're seeing repeated protocol deviations and we're not seeing ways that you're preventing them from happening, and the PI doesn't even know that deviations are occurring, that's not really good. So clear communication between the research staff and the PIs is really valuable. And that's a sample handout. And this is just a sample form that So protocol deviation and protocol violations, they kind of go interchangeably, or you can see Some sites use that protocol deviation and some use protocol violations, or some define it out and break the two apart. What I did find was that protocol deviation is any change, divergence, or departure from the study protocol, and a protocol violation is a significant divergence from the protocol. So it just depends on your site and your sponsor and our ISD the terms that are used. So what we're going to do, we have a small group, but we're going to do I think we have about 16 different case scenarios. Because sometimes it's really hard and we take for granted whether it is a protocol deviation or not. So we're going to answer a couple of simple questions, and these are questions that you can ask yourself. Is this a deviation? Should it be reported? What is the corrective action plan? And what are some ways to prevent the deviation from reoccurring? So what I kind of planned is we would kind of break down, if you're joining us remotely, just kind of go through the case scenarios, and then we could discuss it, and then you could listen in and see if you're on the right track. So the first one we came up with was assessments of procedures not done or completed as required, like BP was not taken. Subject did not fast, time of the blood draw wasn't recorded, and the blood sample wasn't put on ice. So basically, these are different samples, but they didn't follow the lab manual, or they didn't document or design their source to capture important times that they need. So what do y'all think? When we go back to this, is it a deviation?
Here's another question. Is it one deviation or is it multiple deviations? How are you going to record it? Given that it's going to go into a database possibly and maybe tracked. We're often, there's some ways, I've heard different ways of doing it. One, if it's a missed visit, it's one, and then there are multiple issues within that. But if it's different items, you probably need to report them as separate deviations. What have you all experienced? I don't know, there's nothing in the regs to tell us what to do, so we can guess on this. Or depending on the sponsor, I guess I would ask the sponsor, how do you want us to report such a thing? Because they're the ones who will maintain the deviation database. But anyhow.
What experiences have you had? Sure.
All of the mental practice-based research networks are working on a little bit different with everything, but I think we would probably report as one because we would report using that patient number, and we probably have them all listed under that one patient number for that particular day. But I do think it's multiple.
Yeah, ours would be multiple. Yeah, if it was a completely missed visit, one, missed the whole visit. If it's, like if it was the blood draw thing where multiple things were done wrong with the blood draw, a lot of times ours says test not done as instructed or something like that, the exact wording, but it would still be one of those multiple items with the blood draw. So it's the
So the study agent administration error, so you either had the wrong dose, the wrong time, the wrong subject, or the wrong agent. So if you had any one of these items, it would be reported as a deviation. And then we would address, so what would we do to prevent this from happening? How would you re-educate? Did you kind of explore, first of all, why it happened, and identify the process, and maybe come up with an SOP on how to administer the study agent? Go back to the protocol and outline and see how the protocol is written and how you're supposed to follow it. Suggestions? Document that? Not think of anything else?
You're right, you're going to investigate what really happened. But the most important thing is why did it happen, and then how do you keep it from happening in the future? Sometimes we ignore that. Maybe the most important part of the deviation is how do you prevent it from happening. If you can.
Storage errors. The IP was supposed to be refrigerated, but was left out sitting out, and the site didn't keep the temperature on. Yeah, if it's not stored the way that the protocol is written, then it could jeopardize the study drug. It may not be as effective, or it could cause adverse events to yourself. It really does affect patient safety Having a temperature log, I've had sponsors that want to, what is it called? Temp max, minimal, maximum, and you have to log it. If you're using the research pharmacy, a lot of times they have this for you. But if you're doing it yourself, then you really need to document it daily and make sure there's no excursions.
And sometimes, the other thing about deviations is important, sometimes they're not bad. And, you know, we've had drugs that we send home to families, and they leave it out on the counter, because the normal practice of everyday life occurs when they go home, and that's, it may be a deviation, but maybe it can give you some training, guidance on training the family, as well as we've had temperature excursions that have occurred in our refrigerators, and it's made the company say, well, you know, it's really okay. We're going to change how we wrote our protocol, and you can have a wider temperature excursion than we initially said. So a deviation that, you know, if everybody's reporting these minor deviations, sometimes the companies will change the protocol, so that's a good thing. So again, this is where your deviations can teach the company how better to design the protocol, as long as it's safe.
Also, if it's very, it needs to be refrigerated, providing a little bag, an insulated bag that the patient can take and carry. Educating the family on just different things, like if they're traveling, what to do and stuff like that. So, yeah, you can think outside the box too. Informed consent not attained prior to enrollment. This is a huge one.
Yes.
I mean, huge. The FDA auditor would be like, oh, because they're going to look for that documentation to make sure that nothing occurred before the informed consent. So making sure that you've obtained the most recently current version. I think that we'll kind of skip ahead. Yesterday at staff meeting, we were adding to the deviations. And just recently, one of our staff members went to the WRB website and thought was printing off the most current version, but there's a glitch in the website. So you need to make sure that you double check the website. Make sure you
know it wasn't well, she had another one.
And then we went to the red binder, and what happened was the monitor picked up on it, and then we went and we saw what was printed, and then we called the IRB and let them know. There was an issue with the website. So really double check, talk to your red person if you have somebody doing red for you, and just make sure that you're using this version.
We had a study I was aware of where there were 14 subjects enrolled. It was going to be a small study. And they learned after a period of time that the young investigator was doing the consenting. Of those 14, 12 of them were consented on the wrong consent form. So all of that data was thrown out. And because the subjects weren't coming back in, so they simply sent the updated consent to their homes, and people didn't already send it back in. So all that data was lost.
So what do you do when that happens? You want to get the subjects back in, and you want to reconsent them using the most current version. And then you're going to document that you have educated everybody and that you've placed the most current version on the study chart for them to sign and stuff like that. And you want to educate the patient too that, you know, this was updated and tell them exactly what was updated. So, results of the study required lab tests. So, patient comes in and you need a pregnancy test and they can't urinate. And then the protocol, it says you need a urine pregnancy test. What do you do? I had this happen.
Give them a big old glass of water and tell them
They tried 7 or 8 times and mom came back and said, we just can't do it. So, I went to PI and I asked PI, and this is where you have kind of a planned deviation, and so we need the thing that we need to prove is safety to the patient. So, I mean that the patient's not pregnant. So we had labs in the lab, and we added a serum pregnancy test. And this is where you report those deviations, and you start seeing this happen because in this particular type of patient, they have problems urinating and collecting it. So this is where you might need to amend your protocol and get the serum pregnancy test if you can't obtain the urine pregnancy.
So would also, it would be a protocol deviation, but it was one for safety. You can do deviations for safety, and if you report it, and if it's an industry sponsor, if they see enough of those, they'll change the protocol, and they'll take your advice and change it to CRM, but I would still report it as a deviation, but you did the right thing, for sure.
Because we just wanted to make sure that the patient was okay. Consent form is missing, or the consent form was not signed and dated by the subject or appropriate legal guardian. Some part of the signature date was omitted. And this happens a lot, unfortunately. So, what can we do to educate?
I don't know what happened.
Kind of double check too. Get a process that maybe if you have 2 staff members, they double check you. And they double check the consent and go through it. Or if you're working with your PI and your PI is obtaining the consent, you go through and make sure that all the signature is signed in the right appropriate place. You have the appropriate legal guardian, that the person has identified themselves as the legal guardian and that you've documented that they've identified, and that they've dated it correctly. I've had parents that just dated it a day off, and I didn't catch it until the monitor came and said, why is everybody else signed on this day and we signed on that day? So I had to move the file and go back and continue again. So, just having a process there, though, to double check, and double checking and triple checking yourself, or having someone go behind you, having a QC process in your office is just ways that you can do. Dose modifications or failure to modify doses according to the protocol. So the protocol says that you're supposed to titrate up every 6 weeks. And it's Christmas time, and the patient doesn't want to titrate up because they're scared they'll have adverse events over Christmas. What do you do? This has happened. So for the protocol, you're supposed to titrate it up. You can have a planned deviation for the patient and document it. Document the reasons why. Report it. And educate. Subject refused to answer quality of life questions on a questionnaire. It's too personal. They didn't like it. They didn't want to do it. What do you do? You say, no, you have to. No, you just say, okay. Try to collect the information you can and document what happened.
I actually have a study where they said that in the protocol they said it's okay if the patient doesn't answer them. It is not a protocol deviation. That some of these questions,
that's nice.
Some of these questions may make you feel uncomfortable, and it is okay if you don't answer. Now I go back and make sure, did you mean to leave this one blank? But
Yeah, and I think that's good. Look at, that's an important thing to note there. Look at your protocol, see what is a deviation, because we've done studies with children where you're supposed to collect urine, but they don't void on command. So and that's often an optional, I mean, if it's critical, then we may have to cap them, but if it's not, it's going to be an option. And so again, your protocol is going to say it's not a deviation.
It's double checking, because they may not have meant to miss that question, but there's so many on our page that just all goes together. It's a good habit. Using an ad not approved by the IRB or talking about the study publicly without IRB approval. And this happens. You're always supposed to, any time you're doing an ad for a study, have it approved. Make sure the verbiage is appropriate and the IRB has approved that. Sometimes PIs can be interviewed and then they'll go on a tangent about their study, but really they're supposed to let the IRB know that they're going to be talking about the study before they do. Enrolling a patient who did not meet inclusion/exclusion criteria. And so, unfortunately, this happens. It's really good to have a checklist and that your PI signs off of, and that before you enroll that patient, you make sure that they don't have any of the exclusions and they meet all the inclusions. And stop and really be the person that says, no, this patient doesn't qualify when you're not enrolled in. If your PI continues to want to enroll them, that's when you go to your sponsor and see if they will give you some type of waiver or documentation that it's okay to enroll that patient. But those are not seeing that a lot. Occasionally, I think it has happened in the past, but I'm not seeing it in the future. Pretty much the studies are saying, no, they have to meet their conclusions. Investigator-initiated studies, a lot of times the investigator gets into enrolling patients and sees that there's an issue with, that the subjects aren't meeting this criteria, so they're like, oh, we'll amend that later. We're going to go ahead and enroll them now. No. You got to amend it, and then you can enroll them. But a lot of times with your investigator-initiated studies, unfortunately, this happens. So maybe watch it. Make sure that you're reporting it to the IRB, and if you need to amend it, amend it. Shadow chart is not maintained in an organized manner. What do you think? Really, that's not a deviation. It's a DCP kind of, like you want it organized and here are audited, blah, blah, blah. But it's not a deviation from the protocol. Subject misses a study visit, which we've already kind of discussed. We did add some more there in the back, and I didn't add them to my slides. Right beside you, Penny, the last three. I think I talked about the informed consent one, and there were two more that we discussed in the staff meeting. So we'll just go over those. The patient threw away investigator drug bottles. I mean, that's like that. So if you want to re-educate the patient, you want to document in your source that what you've done and how you've re-educated the patient on the protocol. And that's one you can't control, but you have to report it.
No, for that one, what I did, because I thought I was being perfect when I said, okay, we bring back the study medication every visit. You have to return. And when they threw it away, well, that's what we do with all of our medicine. The kid takes so much medicine, they just empty bottle, throw it away. And I was like, well, and I had to re-educate myself and think about what I was telling them. And I was like, I don't know if I specifically told them, don't throw them away. I said we bring them all back, but I never specifically directly told them, do not throw them away. And now, I do.
You do. And also call them to remind them on the visits, like the day before, you can remind them, bring your study medicine. Or if the study provides a bag, having a card that says, hey, don't forget, if you send out reminders, putting a clause on there, don't forget to return your study medication, but consistently and constantly reminding them throughout the study.
And I think what Randy said is that's important because one person you're going to say, bring your study bottles back, and they'll say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to throw them away, I'm going to bring them back. Somebody else needs to hear that extra statement. So in communicating and teaching patients, that's really, you've got to think of every way they might hear the same statement. So you give them all the statements. So they catch one of them.
I had a patient who brought back the bottles that they put their pills in a pill box thing for the week. Yeah. They brought me back their bottles with nothing in it. Oh yeah, it's at home in my pill box. And I put it in and out for the, okay. It's not quite what I'm here from the bottle side.
I can see it happening though. All right, this is a good one. Sample sent for genetic testing, because how many of us are seeing more genetic testing and biomarkers and those kinds of things? Sample sent for genetic testing, but consent was not obtained. So like on the back page where they have to initial yes or no to obtaining it, this patient didn't initial anything. So we obtained the sample, sent it off, and then realized that they hadn't addressed it. So what would be some ways for us to do, like in our source, designing our source, like when we're drawing this lab, to make sure that you have a place that you know that, yes, this is a genetic sample person, or no, this is not, or when you're doing your lab kits, having some kind of sticker on top, letting you know, yes, this is a genetic, or no, this is not. So what do y'all think? Because I thought this was a good one. Like, oh, I can do that.
We have a big red sticker on the front of the column, not on the front of the chart, on the inside of the chart, saying yes or no.
Well, since one of our standards is we're supposed to review the consent form with them every time they come in. Make sure you look at that section if you know you're drawing the blood for genetics, to see if they, again, I think that's what you said, if they check off the genetics.
You could design your source where you really have the lives, in your something on there that matches, so that makes you double check that.
Right.
So in that instance, the next time they come back in, if you reconsent and say, okay, do you agree to that? Will they be able to retroactively use that sample, or do you have to send it home?
That would be an IRB question. I've had the IRB where a patient actually gave consent, but then they changed their mind, so we had to go remove the blood sample. And they had to give me documentation that the sample, because I'd already sent it off, they had destroyed it, and I put that on my source, and then I let the patient know that we had destroyed the sample and stuff like that. So I would refer that one back to the IRB to see what they wanted you to do. What would you do? Really, there's going to be their call, because they gave you consent, but you drew it beforehand. That's the issue that I would do.
It doesn't need to be in the consent. I mean, if you're using a specimen that was drawn before, you want to use remnant specimen? Is that what you were saying?
Well,
I apologize.
this patient didn't address the yes/no questions,
Right.
and you drew it,
Right.
and you sent it off. And then the next time they come back, you get them to address it, and they say, yeah, that's fine.
You want to notify us.
Yeah. And I would kind of say, the IRB, are you okay? I want some kind of documentation, so,
You want
It's
documentation
explained.
about how it all works.
yeah. And you have to let the patient know, explain it to them, and just make sure you document that really well.
I know with our study, just not taking blood, anything like that, it would be reported as a deviation. And in that deviation, if the consent was taken after we drew blood or whatever, we would usually put a note that we still intend to use the data and document it with our IRB.
Can y'all think of any other deviations that happen? So is there value in reporting deviations? Yes. Identify ways to it helps us to identify ways to conduct the study better. It helps the sponsor identify ways to improve the protocol and do amendments. And it identifies and documents why endpoints are not met. So it's really important. So hopefully we've learned definition of a deviation, the contents of a deviation report, the importance of a corrective action plan, which is really, really, really important. The value to the study, how it might change the protocol, and how the study was or was not conducted. And letting your IRB know and sponsor knows the expectations of your IRB and sponsor for reporting protocol deviations.
I had a question. Has anyone ever had to do or decided to do protocol deviation because maybe there was such a significant delay in safety reporting for a subject?
Yes. We have had monitors request it. Because generally what you say, I mean, I think this is where you're going with this, but if the standard reporting for SAEs is 48 hours after identification, and if they identify it 36 hours or whatever, 36 hours after, but they don't report it for 2 weeks, that's a deviation.
But what about if it's just adverse event reporting? Maybe the subject is now in cycle 3 and they put no, and they just haven't done their safety reporting because, they'll do it when they get to it.
I think okay, here's what you can do too is GCPs are, you're supposed, if they don't give you timelines so much, the ICPs, so,
And
but they say you should be,
Yeah.
and it says you should report them in a timely manner. I mean, to me, if the monitor were going out, this is not timely, because what if everybody delayed and there was some significant AE that was occurring at some high frequency and we didn't know? It's one of those things that you do want to have a timeline, but if it's a large amount,
And I think at that point in time, you have to do some re-education about how important timelines are and document the need for making sure you're recording it. And that's when you might pull in the PI and sit down as a study team and come up with ways to make sure they are recorded.
And in addition to that, one thing that's good in investigator-initiated studies, especially if it's, whatever sponsors do, they will do, but, when do you want the CRS completed? Which is also an AE. And we say within 2 weeks after the visit is what we've been doing. And therefore, if they haven't reported the AEs in that period of time, they're possibly review deviation. They haven't reported any CRS.
It's really important to know what your protocol says.
And you may know if anyone had gone to that step.
I think they have.
We have with those, so we have outside monitors for the CRS studies. They have criticized sites for not reporting the data within a month. Even though the protocol really didn't have timeline in it, but they were too, because it was considered not compliant with PCP.
Next week is, risk based monitoring. Risk based.
So just to report deviation to
No. This is what it's. So, kind of a reset. Assessments. She has to consider. She's already. I'm trying to be careful with what's environment, but she asks us to bring it. And she's so. We need to consult her because she was. Well, she's going to campus now, and it's never been seen again. We don't know where it is. I mean, first of all, I don't know what to do to try to find it, but.
Man, I don't understand. Deviation. What plan?
Just spell that.
So, I understand that. Maybe it's a better term. Cross-section versus
I'm sorry, it's not right.
I didn't do it.
No, that's just a normal law.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was your phone.
I might have said phone. It's probably wrong. Sit in the chair.
It's
It was on that, tops and that, lost its checkbook.
Intentional and unintentional, how about that?
Yeah, well-
Maybe that's better too.
I think it's
So the reason I bring all this up is because I was,
it's a, that point,
exam part of it. It's one
who's
of your
responsible
states
for doing all the numbers, for making amends for all of it. Well, it's like, it seems like common was, is it, Randy, you will, even though you're not responsible for that happening, you do some, you take care of it. Like, is it like, is there a certain standard? Should the person file, that's responsible, if there's stuff is happening, hey, you should do something.
And I would report it. And that's report it to the yeah, I did it to you, that I would just put, this is what occurred. And that you're just reporting it.
Really all it is.
Now, I would put that.
So,
And that's what I feel like, she's kind of like calling me for some reason.
Right.
And so that's what it's putting our files and this and that and us. But it's, in the instance where I started changing my plan versus unplan, because yes, you are thinking about what's the future, it's going to be in the future, so it's not
This study. Like
But
even,
you can't plan for the past though.
But,
I mean,
yeah, I know,
it's-
that's just how you think about it, it's something that you usually have to work and go straight. And that's why it was unfolded.
it doesn't need
That probably not
to
Perspective, you found it
medicine
after
study,
the
but
fact versus.
it's exercise study.
But is there,
Like,
but where is it documented?
He's
Do you have a
gonna-
place you
what?
document this thing? Because usually that's just something that.
No, it doesn't address any, I mean, that's what I was surprised, I mean, yeah, and I was like, I'm surprised there's not standard things, well, shouldn't there be an A
And I think
section
that's
for all
all it is,
this?
we
We
make,
don't use that.
yeah, we're just
We are
adding
allocated.
terms now.
Yeah.
If there's any
Really
changes from
just-
based on when they started from the study
These are sick people. It's really surprising when I read their protocol, there's not any reporting or anything. So I, him and Lynn kind of talked, and they were like, yeah, you're right, we should do something, we need to do something. And I made an AE form based on another AE form for another study, and I was like, that's okay with y'all, like,
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so you need to sign this.
How is it?
It's not really, I don't know.
Look, we need to come up with a process. That just happened. Because you're gonna have to report it and you're.
I mean, you know, I mean, I agree in the way that we're doing it.
So come up with a better process.
Let's see if I'm right sometimes. And if we get it, you know, nobody
Keep it from happening. And that's the.
But it is a good, it's an important point to make. That, you should be required.
Protocols,
And
which
you know,
really weird
then
looking
it's,
too, that's what I'm saying,
you know,
like,
you're kind of the sponsor for the study, and you want to know what's on the database, and you want to know how many plans there were, and what you know, how many had to be done ahead of time, because those are the things really that often cause the change.
So, okay,
Get
so.
information to get funded.
This is a question that.
But that's where you,
as a
have all
center.
these things.
So,
We can
do
help
you
you.
report this? Yeah.
The deviation?
Yes, do you report them like along with?
but even GW, so either.
For all of our sites?
Yes.
Okay.
So
We just do for the
that's a
UAV.
deviation section.
Yes,
I'm
okay.
You know,
just the UAV site, and then, you know, I don't go back to Susan. I don't think we were,
That's what I would do.
so
that's a good point, do you?
Well, we reported major ones, like things like enrollment issues, where we enroll someone that
We've had plenty of
we've done
deviations.
one of
One of
the,
the sites is enrolled.
yeah, and that got reported.
How do you,
But any of the deviations,
what's amazing?
because you got to.
That's
Or is it just a deviation?
I mean, I think that, but someone hit harm, so this is where, yeah, the farmer has, yeah, unintended risks are harm.
They
And
changed
I
the
think
board.
that's how we addressed it. And I don't know if we, Tracy, prior to,
Wherever this guy
submitting this, or, just give it on.
So then, my
Yeah.
next question is,
And so now that, you know, that's on our
if the
law,
you know, it's protocol is having deviations, or has its own standard for deviations or whatever, deviation form. Theirs are just health related to the patient.
So as far as
How the patient.
the coordinating center,
There's no deviation
You know, like
to
there should
the
be like.
study.
that's a good one, you know.
So you
those are usually,
should clarify the deviation. Separate studies for studies or you?
not, you know, just one.
Or in Montreal,
Or they have their own challenge, and we have to do those. But it's- Yeah, and that technically is a
That's really,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, that's safety and.
Yeah.
They're pretty.
What about a,
So when you're
breast cancer study, well, all it is registry. That's what I'm saying, because, you know, these people
Don't put me in bed.
can't. So,
What we do.
I mean, if you don't know anything, is anything in AE? We're not doing, we're not zooming with you too.
You know, there's not, there was a decision, and now it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not someone about ready to die, like, you start doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't wanna do, I wanna inundate more stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but we are collecting it, and I wanna say, someone was at it, I'm not.
Yeah.
Is your sponsor?
Use your rector's method.
I'm mad at him. He told me this issue.
That would be kind of different. No.
He did it on the fly.
Yeah.
You know, trust him in building
You trust this, you trust this, you like,
I
you know that you.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm stressed.
We're getting better.
It's not even me.
I'm telling you, this, I mean, we are, that's what
What, maybe there?
we have it pretty fine tuned, everybody's, I mean, if we spend, anyhow, we have gotten more, we have the ability to. Oh. I don't know. I could probably close it.
Maybe I can do
Okay. Well, sorry. We started with, this will be our sixth one, we're about to go through the other. It's It's getting worse. I mean, it's not getting better, it's worse. So
We found that it got easier as we went on. They keep giving you the wrong people that manage it. It's working.
So,
See?
There you go.
They're fantastic.
you got team A,
You
we got
have-
team B.
For a long time, I know, I had, bless you.
She's still.
She's still with you guys?
She took her off bars.
They're like, yeah,
Because
technically, she is still, but that's, yeah, it's her and whatever we do. Or, we know, we have two programmers, but
They don't give you one person to talk to?
So,
We have one person we deal with,
this is.
and he's so fantastic.
But what they do is they split it up amongst one.
And so they split it out, and I get that, but one of them goes with you, just one, and he's fantastic. See,
We're just getting.
see, you're
That's
just,
it.
The drugs.
Yeah.
the drugs. Yeah, that would, because I know they have a lot of people working on it, and I kind of, they convinced me, I kind of understood why they were doing it, but we needed one person to do it, because we also, they make our bill 24/7. And they asked the person, oh, we didn't do that, and I said, yeah, but you have to. Like, we're trying to enroll, because many of our students are, when they're ready to be enrolled, they need to start a drug, because they're so critically ill. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to wait for Monday.
Yeah.
And so, finally, got a phone tree in place. If something wasn't working with the system, I had it.
Yeah. I don't know,
Yeah, we paid a lot, but
and God grants it for me. So, and it's not quarterly anymore, when you have, such PIs,
right.
like actively discussing this on, on group calls. No, he's not doing anything any better, so.
And as we learned many years ago, you can't break what we do is, so as a coordinating center, we have 2 or 3 investigators who work really locally, and maybe we pull in one other one, and they work really hard on it, and they get it well designed, and they send it out, and when people comment, but if you put it in writing, we're not going to discuss it, put in writing what you want done, it comes back to the 2 or 3 key people, you clean it up, and you say, that's it. Because you can't put in group consensus, we tried, because we've had like 25 sites on the protocol. It's insane.
No, well, yeah, we do a little different on the protocol. Protocol is pretty much one person. If someone just takes the lead and then we get 2 or 3 other people to do their sort of champions or, so we call them 3 or 4 people, yeah. And then, but it also has to go through, a handful of approval levels. So the DOD has to, their scientific community has to sign off on things. And that's usually,